Good morning, y'all. Stop number one, Great Lakes Kayak Series kicks off this morning. We are out on the water. Get ready, day one. The line's not in until 6:15, so we got about an hour left. And yeah, about another 45 minutes of paddling to get to my spot. And that's about where the camera troubles came back in. I mentioned in the other video that we were having some problems. I had a GoPro dunk in the water, fried something on my power control, which is built into my tackle crate, and thought I had a workaround, but apparently it did not work out. So we really have no footage from the actual tournament fishing on Sangchris Lake for stop number one, Great Lakes Kayak Series. So this video is gonna be a little different. I'm gonna kind of walk through things, let you know what I did, break down the lake, and kind of how I went about things. Without really any footage. I mean, I've got some footage from practice that I can show you as far as what the lake looks like, what I was looking for. Really how I went into practice was just looking for a clue as to where the fish were. I really didn't know. This was a lake that I'd mentioned I had never heard of until the tournament schedule was released. So I kind of did some map studies, checking out on Navionics, the web app, searching around the internet just to get a feel for what happens on Sangchris Lake around the springtime. Had heard fish could be setting up, fish could be like in brush piles, they could be up shallow. There's a lot of different options of where fish could be. So I wanted to practice with the thought of, okay, I'm gonna fish general springtime. I'm gonna go and throw a jerkbait a bit, kind of in some areas where I think fish are staging moving into the spawn. I'm gonna have a jig tied on, then I'm gonna be able to go and flip up into some bushes and stuff. And what I found was fish were super shallow. I'd mentioned that in the last video. So I went back into it with the watercolor being super dark, the fish up shallow. I was gonna play a shallow game. I wanted to cover a lot of water as well this day to try and catch as many fish as possible. And you know, being someone that doesn't have live scope in my boat, for me to just sit and blindly throw into bushes and brush piles and things like that, it just doesn't feel as effective for me. So I wanted to power fish, which is kind of more my style anyway. During the tournament, the one thing I will say is the weather turned terrible. It was 20-30 mile an hour winds. You didn't tell it was gonna drizzle or not. The sun was out. That's when my bite window at all happened. As soon as the sun went away, it was done. It got really cold, and I'm talking air temperature might have been 40 degrees. I mean, it was a really chilly struggle grinder of a tournament. In fact, it was so bad at one point I'd run across the lake to fish into a cut, and on my way back I was spearing into waves. Having the water splash on me, the water was warmer than the actual air. I had about 59 degrees temp on my graph for the water. The one thing important about the wind that I will mention is the fact that the best fishing and the guys that all finished at the top 10, they were fishing on the wind-swept side of the lake. I wanted to fish there, however, my boat just doesn't handle that well. I mean, the fact that I don't have a motor on my Lightning Strike, it's all pedal driven, and really the kind of downside of that pedal drive is it's not as strong as like the Hobie with the HD turbo fins, whatever. So I kind of have a hard time controlling the boat in really strong winds and really strong current. So instead of putting myself through the headache because of the wind pushing into that shoreline, I knew fish were gonna be pushed up shallow there, but I just was not gonna be able to fish it efficiently. So I still had to stick to my plan, fish as protected as I could, and fish my way back. So really I went with 4 setups through the entire tournament. Actually only 2 I used the entire time. One of them that I had tied on was just a basic spinnerbaits, white chartreuse. Was throwing that on the PC Fun. This is the Alloy M in the 7:5:1 gear ratio. Wanted to be able to burn that spinnerbait. So what I would do is I would get up shallow and cast it as deep into the bushes as I possibly could and quickly reel it out, right? Hoping that fish, if they were tucked up in there, because this lake to me was incredibly hard to fish without losing baits, basically. Because of the way that the bushes and everything and roots of the trees extended out into the water, it gave great cover for the fish, made the fish push up shallow into it. But you know, you had to get into it, which also meant you were probably gonna get snagged up in some things. I actually had one fish bite and pull me into, I don't know, it was a part of a bush or it was part of some tree roots, but that's where I lost the one bait that actually I was catching most of my fish on through the tournament. On that spinnerbait, of course, I had excellent lures. This is the mini swammer in the chartreuse and white, one of my favorite colors for springtime and specifically smallmouth bass. I don't know what it is about smallmouth. They hate chartreuse, so I just tend to have a lot of chartreuse stuff. Being in the north, I do a lot more smallmouth fishing, but you know, I was going with just bright colors for this tournament. That's why, you know, the silver blades, the white chartreuse on the spinnerbait, that's what we were doing. Additionally, I did have a bait to kind of throw in if there were things that I found, or like a follow-up bait. Could have went with the Wacky Rig Senko. Instead, I went with the Ned. This is X-Zone Lures Stealth Invader. Absolutely love that thing. This bait, to me, it's just like the tail wiggle on it, and the fact that when it stands there, that floats up, and you can really just kind of tickle it around. This, a dynamite bait for fishing beds. If you haven't checked it out, go and check it out. It's a Stealth Invader from X-Zone Lures. Absolutely love that for a Ned rig presentation. I had that on the PC Fun Carbon X2. This is the 3000 series. I like going white, braided line to a 8-pound floral carbon leader. I like the white because I want to be able to see the line. So to me, I think when I'm doing finesse presentations, I always like to go with that high vis green or white for my line colors. The two baits that I used the entire time, the one that was absolutely locked in my hand the entire time was this here, bladed jig or chatterbait, specifically in the coleslaw color. I love coleslaw because to me it mixes the best of that chartreuse, white, orange, red together. I was throwing, not this specific chatterbait, I mentioned I lost the one that I was throwing, and I only had one of those in the boat with me, and that was the Berkeley Slobber Knocker. What was really cool about the Slobber Knocker in coleslaw is it actually has like a red-orange blade on it, which I thought I'd probably just paint this and do it the same way. Again, tipped in the back of it, X-Zone Lures, mini swammer, again that chartreuse, that white. I threw it all day long. In fact, as the tournament got rolling along, morning started off fairly slowly, and then the sun started to come out and my bite just turned on. I mean, I hooked a fish right at about 7 o'clock. Had the fish come right to the side of the boat. Just as I was about to net, the fish came off. I think it just had the tail of the bait and it kind of saw me just let go. Probably about a 16-inch fish, so all right, lost the first one, gonna continue on. Was working along the shoreline and got around the bend. Now, I'll show you here on the map what I did, how we had about an hour and 15 minutes to run. I ran from launch all the way up around this bend and started up there and was gonna fish my way back, and then eventually, if I found a good spot, kind of just work that spot along the way. Well, as I got right around the bend, I thought was gonna be a perfect spot. Immediately hook up a new fish. That was the first one of the day, which when it got into the boat, I was shocked that it was that small, because as I got in the net, I thought, wow, this thing's like gotta be close to 20. I was shocked when I put it on the board and it was a little bit smaller, but still, great start to the morning. Solid 18. That was easily 4 pounds. Solid fish. So that was 2 fish already that I've had on the same bait. I thought, okay, this is gonna be the money ticket. I'm gonna stick with this for a while. And I worked my way down along the shore. Within a matter of 35 minutes, I had hooked a second fish, came a little bit shorter. And then right after that, I was in a back pocket where I caught the fish. Immediately other side, I thought, because it's so shallow, I want to throw something and kind of work like just subsurface. And that's when I reached for the big swim bait. X-Zone Mega Swammer. This is a 5.5-inch bait. Got it rigged up on a 5-aught Berkeley Fusion weighted hook. You could even do it on a 6-aught, just plain unweighted swim bait, you know, screw lock hook. That'll actually keep it like almost like floats up on the surface. Great way to do it, so you want to do it that way. Or again, weighted swim bait hook, what I was going with. But I just casted it up and gave it kind of 2 pops and just whoosh, got crushed. Fish didn't get the whole bait in its mouth because I didn't get any hooks. I'm gonna show you a little trick. If you find that happening to you, that fish are short striking on swim bait, what I will do is I will actually take a plain treble hook, all right? I'll take it and try to make sure it's oriented where the one little treble is up, push it onto your hook, right? And we're just gonna rig our swim bait like we normally would rig our swim bait. Up through, boom. And then you're gonna take this treble hook in the back and just kind of stick it in there. So that then creates that stinger hook essentially, where if they just kind of grab the tail, they short strike it, they don't get the whole hook in your mouth. You've got these back here. Again, fish gets hooked, it can go free. You're fighting on this, you know, the swim bait pops up here, whatever, and you still got the fish hooked on the treble hook. So that's a little trick if you want to add a stinger, but really the key is you got to make sure that that one hook is up so it can kind of stick into the bait. There you go. That was a missed fish, but still got a fish a hit in the swim bait. Reel I use for swim baits is the new PC Fun Alley Jaws in the 8 1-to-1. Put this on a heavy action. This is about a 6'2" rod. Being a kayak, I actually like with swim baits to be a little bit shorter of rod and a lot stiffer of a rod. So whatever you use, go with it. But this reel, the fact that it's big, it's got a lot of line capacity, you can put braid on it, I can really rip this thing out of stuff, and the speed, you know, that I can just rip it in. If I cast in at somewhere I don't want, I can rip it back and get back in there, so you don't have a whole lot of wasted time while reeling in. So I recommend it. PC Fun 8-1-1 alley jaws, awesome for big swim baits, awesome for pitching, any of those presentations where you're going to be throwing in and want to get your bait back to you as quick as possible. In fact, you want to check out a deal on these, I got a link below. You can go get any of the PC Fun reels, and if you want to save yourself some cash, 15% off, use the code SR15. I think I covered everything, right? Talked about it? Yeah. Talked about using the Ned that I actually never ended up throwing. Talked about swim bait. Talked about spinner bait. I did throw the spinner bait at the end of the tournament. I had about half hour left, and I kind of fished my way close to the ramp, and that was after I'd had the chatterbait broke off, and I just, instead of tying something on, I just reached for the spinner bait and was kind of doing the same thing. I did have one fish hit, get on. I got about 4 cranks of the reel before it came off, so that was a bummer, but I did have another fish hit on the swim bait. Tournament did not turn out how I wanted it to, but yet I think it was a success. Going into this tournament, I had talked to a couple of guys who said practice was a struggle. They were not catching anything, nothing was happening, and so after having my practice and not really getting a whole lot, but discovering the fish were up shallow, I wasn't expecting much. I kind of thought if I get 5 bites, I got a chance, and I thought anyone that gets 5 bites is gonna have a chance. So the fact that I got 5 bites, only got 3 of them into the boat, you know, obviously let down, but still finished 15th, finished middle of the pack, scored some good points for Angler of the Year this year, which of course our Angler of the Year leads us to the state championship. Top 5 of the state championship make it to the Bassmaster Kayak Classic. That's the goal, to eventually get there, but got another chance, gonna be on the Wolf and Fox Rivers coming up here for stop number 2 really soon. But if you have any questions about anything to do with Sangchris Lake, what I found in the springtime, drop me a comment. I'm not a gatekeeper. I'm all about helping you out, showing you things. Again, I mean, I showed you everything that I'm running for my baits. I would say chatterbait, spinner baits, always good to go with. Swim bait. I want to say congrats to the winner, Nick Van Gompel. The rest of the guys that all finished within the top 5 and even in the top 10. It was a fun tournament. Top baits were chatterbait, spinner bait, and flipping and pitching jigs into those bushes that were extending off the shoreline. Again, all of that was on the windswept side. I mentioned earlier, I just was not able to fish that. So, you know, it just kind of was a tournament that the abilities that I had weren't going to put me in a place to win. Sometimes that's what happens. You know, the one thing I always try and do is I'm just gonna fish to my strengths. Fish your fish, as I say all the time. I'm gonna be me, I'm gonna fish to my strengths. Sometimes the fishery on a certain day doesn't set up to my strengths. I'm still gonna fish it hard and fish to the very last cast. Sometimes that's just the way it shakes out. Next time, hopefully we'll have more tournament footage to actually show you on the water and break it down how things go on the Wolf and Fox Rivers. All right, if you love content like this, lake breakdowns, everything, make sure to give this video a like, hit the subscribe button. We got a cool giveaway with some PC Fun reels on the way, and don't forget to check out some merch if you want to support the channel. That's all posted down below. 5% of the profits of all Return to Wild merch goes directly back to conservation organizations that protect conservation and public access to the outdoors. Cool stuff. Check out cool hoodies and hats and whatnot. So go check it out. We will catch you on the next one.